Welcome back. It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined again by Eric Bauman. He is the chair of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, vice chair of the California Democratic Party. The June primary is behind us. What do you think about your slate of candidates constitutionally?
I think it's extraordinary. I think we're moving ahead towards a wonderful November here in California, and we're going to lead the nation with that big blue beacon of hope called California.
Let's talk about the top of the ticket, if I may. Your nominee will be Jerry Brown. Is Jerry Brown the incumbent? It's hard to deny that most polls suggest that he is likely to be victorious in November, taking nothing away from Mr. Kashkari. What's your sense of why Mr. Brown seems to be a big favorite?
You know what? Jerry Brown has delivered exactly what he promised. He said he wouldn't raise taxes without a vote of the people. He didn't. He said he'd get the budget back in balance, close the $60 billion budget deficit. He's worked with the legislature to pass legislation that actually makes life better for people, from passing the Middle Class Scholarship Act to implementing the Affordable Care Act here in California, which we call Covered California. I mean, he has done exactly what he said he's done. And the amazing thing is there's nobody that understands California government better than Jerry Brown. He understands every nuance of it.
And I want to talk about the Affordable Care Act. Surveys have come out recently, and I don't care what one thinks about the Affordable Care Act, it's hard to deny the statistics, the numbers. Again, I'm not taking a position, but if you look at California, the proportion of uninsured declined from 22% to 11%, all through the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. What does that say to you, both in terms of the effectiveness of it, but also the political ramifications of it?
Well, look, first of all, the Republicans had done such a good job demonizing it that people hated it when, even if you went through the individual provisions of the Affordable Care Act and you said, do you think that people shouldn't be banned from coverage because of pre-existing conditions? Do you think that kids ought to be able to stay on their parents' coverage longer? As you went through it, people said, oh yeah. Then you say, do you support the Affordable Care Act? Oh no, that's terrible. But here's the bottom line. The Republicans said young people would not sign up. Most important thing of all, in order to maintain a balanced risk pool for health care. You know what? Young people have signed up in droves.
Yeah, as I understand
in fact, I want to make a point. Mm-hmm. Across the country, more insurance companies are bidding for next year, for second year's inclusion, than in the first year's inclusion, which tells you that it's been a success.
In the recent survey that came out from the Commonwealth Fund, the largest gains in coverage were young adults, 19 to 34, Latinos who had not been signing up early on, and the low income. So, but what does this mean electorally, that the Affordable Care Act, with a bumpy rollout, seems to, if you look at the statistics, be a success?
I'm not sure what it means in 2014. It takes a while for this to sink in. But what people will soon be realizing, I mean, here in California, 3.5 million people have health care who didn't have it a year ago. So pretty soon that's going to sink in and say, wait a minute, that's what President Obama and the Democrats delivered for us. That is huge.
But if you look at those three groups, young adults, Latinos, and low income, they have a lower propensity to vote.
That's true, and they're all Democrats.
And those tend to be Democratic categories. What are you doing as chair of the LA County Democratic Party, as vice chair of the California Democratic Party, to motivate these folks that have presumably benefited from the initiative of a Democratic president to get them to the polls in 2014?
You understand that if I gave you that tactical information, you'd never be able to appear on the show again.
More generally, though.
Look, of course we're going to them, we're going to those voters, and we're making sure they're voters, and we're going to them and we're saying, look, we kept our word, we delivered what we said we would deliver, now we need your help. We need to be able to pass this kind of legislation, everything from immigration reform to education reform. We need our folks to come out to vote, and here's the deliverables to prove that we kept our word.
2012, it's hard to deny, was a banner year for the California Democratic Party. President Obama took this state with over 60% of the vote. The California legislature went 2/3 for Democrats in both the Senate and the Assembly, giving them a supermajority, which allowed the Democrats to really push their initiative, although some have argued that they worked with the Republicans throughout this process. Because of a series of events, the Democrats have lost that supermajority.
Only in the Senate.
Only in the Senate, which is true. When you look towards 2014, do you see the Democrats maintaining supermajority status or regaining supermajority status after this convention?
I think, contrary to conventional wisdom, I think we're going to actually pick up seats in the Assembly.
In the Assembly?
In the Assembly. I think we're going to pick up seats. The Senate has a fight on their hands. This is a different electorate, although November's electorate is a much more blue electorate than the June electorate. It's not like a presidential year. And the reality is the working people who are Democrats have a much harder time getting to the polls. Because, you know, if you live in Lancaster and you work cleaning a hotel in Century City, or if you're a teacher's aide who lives in Boyle Heights and works in a school in Santa Monica, you spend hours a day traveling. So the secret is for us to put ballots in their hand. That's why vote-by-mail voting is so important.
You mentioned the Senate, and part of the challenge behind the California Senate and the loss of the supermajority was 3 members of the Senate have faced scandal, corruption charges. All 3 are Democrats, completely independent of each other, which is interesting. It's not like it was swooped up in one shrimp scandal. How does that play out? You know, it's hard to know if it really played out in June, although the Calderon family had a tough night in June. But how does that play out?
I think every poll shows us that the voters don't connect that. They realize that those are individual politicians who had individual problems, and I think that's true. And part of the unfortunately, one of the difficulties in politics is that most people believe all politicians are crooks. So when something like this comes to light, and people say, "Oh, gee, that's, you know, what a shock." The truth of the matter is most politicians of both parties are good people who care about this state and care about this country.
I want to hark back to 2010. In 2010, there was a Republican wave that swept the entire nation and stopped right at the Sierra Nevadas. California's Democratic Party had a great 2010.
Yes.
That could happen again in 2014.
It could.
And
I can assure you that at least this side of the Sierra Nevadas, it will.
So,
we're working hard to make sure that's the case.
But why is that? Why is it that California continues to be so deep blue when the rest of the nation, blue at times for presidential and then in non-presidential?
The people of California are possessed of wisdom.
But I understand, but there's got to be more to it. And, you know, can you impart your wisdom to the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, the Florida Democratic Party?
You know what? Here's the bottom line. We have worked hard to deliver in California. And after 16 years of Republican rule, Gray Davis got elected governor. His governorship did some tremendous good things. People were terribly angry about the energy crisis and the budget crisis, so they brought in Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was proof positive to the people of California that Republican ideas don't work.
As we speak today, we don't know whether Hillary Clinton will be running for president.
I'm ready for Hillary.
Okay. Talk to us about how you and many California Democrats are ready for Hillary.
You know, I think having somebody with her experience from being a lawyer, a first lady, a United States senator, secretary of state, she's the whole package. She's been through the most difficult of times politically, and she's risen to the challenge.
But is she the whole package to Virginia, to Florida, to Pennsylvania, to Colorado, to New Mexico, to purple states that she'll have to win if she does win?
First off, if you believe the polls, she certainly is, since there's not a Republican that's within touching distance of her. And by the way, once again, the Republicans have this mix-up of, 24 potential candidates who are already fighting with each other.
His name is Eric Bauman. He is the chair of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, vice chair of the California Democratic Party. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.